Hamachal said the Shabbos, but Dov Shachem and Alzon Koris for Shirgos Chatas. Of course, the regular Chil Shabbos. Here vis-a-vis a carbon because it's well, actually we're talking about skila, right? For Shreya it would be skila, but something where if you had done it b'zadon you get koris and b'shkog you get a chatas. If you did it b'mezi you get skila. V'amakal avivimo also get skila. However, eno chayv ha'shkalim b'shem. So do it with the shem Hashem mamish. Kilim kino if he does it with a appellation for euphemism for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Meir Mechayev, where it says it's forbidden. It's not clear if Mechayev means skila here, but probably means skila. And Cholim Pocher, I'll say still Pocher. Haba Namurah to be has relations with a betrothed girl, and a Chayva should say Narosh, gotta be 12. Besula, she has to be a virgin. Murasa, betrothed, Bebeis Avia, in her father's house. Bol Eshnayim, if two people have relations with her, Arishon Beskila, the first one gets skila because she's still a Besula. But Hashem, by the time the second one gets around to her, she's already not considered to be a basula, and it's bechenek. The Bnei Moshe brings down that it's dark where the first one is kedarka, right? No. So he says brings down the machlekes. That there's a machlekes where the bia shel kedarka makes her a buula or not. So our mission is going like the Mandam holds. Bia shelo kedarka also makes her buula, and that's why the second night to have relations with her is pater, even if she's still technically a psula because she had a relation shelo kedarka. As far as mechal minayin, how do we know warning for mechal Shabbos? Because it says lo sa'asekom locha, do not do any work, and that's the lot. Koris man, no koris kikola, he said bom belocha v'nichrasa. It says anybody does work on Shabbos, he gets koris. Oynish minayin, how we know the death penalty because it says mechaleh mos yimos they who desecrate the Shabbos shall die. Says more v'nisnei shloshim, and it should be the Ridbat shades of shloshim v'tisha krisus pater. Why don't we ever mention when we speak about the number of krisus that for Shabbos there are 39 krisus, right? In the Gemara in the Mishnah Masechta Krisus, numerated 36, there should be a whole other 39. Even though it says 37, it should be a whole other 39 for Shabbos. So Rabbi Yisrael said Shim also kulam b'zoda on Shabbos b'zoda melacha shu chayav kol. That's part of the question. Sustain the question, and he said she must have kulan bezodon Shabbos bezodon malacha. If you did all 39 of them, shuchayav kol achazavos, you're liable for each one, meaning each one of them gives you courage. So there'd be 39 other creases. Now a couple of questions change it here. She must have bezodon Shabbos shigas malacha shuchayav and vis-a-vis korban. No, there's not really a difference. But anyway, the Gemara doesn't answer. When it says Taka Shabbos should be numerated as 39 separate creases because each one of the malachos, which Bisholi has its own korban, of course has its own karis. Okay? Says how do we know warning for somebody who cursed father and mother? Says your person, his father and mother should fear. Now, that's still not a lot. So the Mechamayim says Pshat. There are a couple of different forms to say Pshat. The Mechamayim says Pshat because it says Veshabsosai Tishmoru at the end of the passage. It says Ish Iva Imo Bavitro Veshabsosai Tishmoru. So there's a linkage drawn between Shabbos and cursing one's parents. So just like by Shabbos, there's a prohibition. There's a lav. There's so on and Torah. So too we draw up the linkage. And we say that by Mikal Aviv there's a prohibition as well. Only for kares. Now we know the penalty and the kares because it says Mikalel Aviv Imo Mos Yumos. It says Mikalel Aviv Imo. That's the death penalty, and it says Kikola Ashel Kosher Asem Kol Toivos Elu V'Nichrusu, and we link somehow Toevos to Mikalo. I forget exactly how that linkage works, but somehow they link up. Okay. Haba Namrosa. Somebody has relations with a betrothed girl. Rabbi Yasser B'Shem Yelon, Rabbi Chi B'Shem Elazar said to Rabbi Meir, there's going to occur. Meir says she has to be over 12. But according to Rabbanan, Afilu Ktana, even if she's a minor, she's under 12 years old, there still is skila. Okay, of course she doesn't get stoned because she's a minor, but the boel gets stoned for having had relations with Namrosa, even for a Ktana Hamrosa. Of course, talking about a case where her father married her off. Otherwise, there's no condition to Raisa for a Ktana, but if her father married her off, so she's a Ktana Murasa, and anybody has alleged they're also skila. Says the Gemara, my time out should be to Rabbanan. What's the reason Rabbanan who say that even if she's a Ktana, because Na'ara Chaser Murapach, she's thrown without a hay. So it means, so we darshan the lack of hay to indicate that she's not quite a nara yet. How old is she? Therefore, even under 12. My Mekayim, it should my Mekayim Rabbi Meir it should be. Nara, what does it do with the fact that nara is written missing a hay? Rabbi Shlomo said, it's true that nara is written without a hay, but elsewhere in Parshas Kitah it says specifically by Motzi Shemra, somebody who claims his wife had no basulim. Nara achashleim amura b'parsha. There it's written one time complete. And we extrapolate from there to all the other times. Limdal kol parsha kula shehi gadol teaches us that throughout the parsha we're talking about a gadola specifically, a girl who's over 12, because the one time it says with a hey that teaches us about all the other times. Meser and Meir Rabban Rabbi Meir asked the rabbis, Motzi Shemra. What about Motzi Shemra? Rein kosabo ela na'ara. There by Motzi Shemra it says several times Na'ara, the Elo is a little bit out of place, but it says several times Na'ara without a hay. Yeah, we know if he Gedola, there it's talking about a Gedola for sure, because it says if she was Mizana, she gets stoned. Vein skill l'ktana, vein ktanas niskelos, right? If it's true that she was Mizana, she gets stoned, that indicates to talk about Gedola, despite the fact that it says Na'ara missing a hay. So it must indicate to us that Na'ara missing a hay is not necessarily indication that we're talking about a Ktana, but rather could still be talking about a Gedola. So it says, what do Rabbanan do with that phenomenon, that we have a nara without a hay several times, and it obviously means a gedola, at least in the Parsha Motzi Shema. Says, Rabbi Yamar, said, it's about when you had relations with her, shalo kedarka. Derech zachrus means the same way homosexuals have relations. But there's be a shalo kedarka. So it says, this is talking about the reason why it's missing a hay by Motzi Shema is not the according to Rabbanan darshan there as well. They can't darshan means a ktana, because a ktana wouldn't be a chav skila, but it means that even if this girl who was a nara murasa was mizaneh shalo kedarka, she's already chayav skila for that. Okay, so she's chayav skila for any way she's mizaneh when she's a nara murasa. Okay, says Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba boy kumi Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba asked for the Rab. Sorry, habala ktana b'skil mau. What happens if you have relations with a ktana? So our Malaysia said, I was saying a question b'skila. The flaw is a good stone. What? Of course, nara murasa, right? Habala bogeres. We have relations with a girl over 12 and a half. Mau. Our Malaysia said that's different. Ani akra. I will read the pasuk nara v'lo bogeres. It's got to be under 12 and a half. Once she's over 12 and a half, she degrades the death penalty downgrades down to chenek, right? The same thing an Eish gets.
Oh, but the Bulgaris here is an Eish Shish.
Yeah, she's an Eish. Yeah, no Eish. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, so Ukra Nara v'lo Ktana. So Rabbi Yaakov Rav asked Rav, so read also Nara to preclude a Ktana. Says more, Rav retorted to him. Now, the Korban Eidah changes the gears a lot here, but I'll try and do without it. So he says, I understand, lace ad moida li, don't you consider me shuba knas? That if you rape a ktana, that you have to pay your father a knas? Amalei says, so the same thing, there's skila. Amalei said, no, that's different. Tachas asher ino, l'rabos is a ktana l'knas. That's a special halacha by knas. Because it says tachas asher ina, right? Why does it say that for? It's superfluous. So it's going to tell us that knas applies even for a ketana. Ukra tachas asher ina, l'rabbi sisa bogeres beknas, and the says Rabbi Yaakov, and even by knas, I couldn't understand what's going on, because obviously bogeres is precluded from knas. I don't know why. It says tachas asher ina, right? Since you afflict her, you give knas. Why shouldn't it apply to a gedola as well? No matter who you afflict, the show is that to pay knas. So the Gemara ends up with a shverkite. The Gemara doesn't actually give an answer. Rav doesn't give an answer. Why? If Nara precludes bogeres, it doesn't preclude Ketana. If it doesn't preclude Ketana, why does it preclude bogeres? So it says the Gemara, Rav Yosef Alfa Gab the Natzchi, Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba. I say it doesn't say Yosef. My Rav said, Av al Gab the Nitzchi Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba Bedino, even though Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba vanquished me in terms of how to learn the psukim. The halacha is like I said. Now, in other words, I might not know how to make the droshes, but that's the halacha. Aboa ktana b'skila, some installations with the ktana they get skila of the hipatur and she's exempt. Rabbi Yavin b'shem Rabbi Shmuel said, "V'lama lo posar le min hador." Why though do we learn out from here? It says, it says the man who has relations with her dies by himself. Where he raped the girl. Don't we know that the woman is exempt where she's raped? Why does it say don't do anything to the girl? Because she has no sin which should provoke the death penalty. Obviously, we know that she was raped. Now, the Bavli learns from here the concept of onus, right? That there's a concept of rape which which exempts you. But the Yerushalmi says rape is a logic. You don't need a pasuk for that. So that's the case. What's the necessity of the pasuk that Na'ara said davar? What's it trying to tell us? Because she doesn't have a sin. Must be telling us that there's another girl, which even if she has a chet maves, she doesn't get stoned. She doesn't get stoned, but her lover, the adulterer, does get stoned. So we're proposing to learn from here that the ketana gets the boel, the adulterer gets skila, even though she herself is off the hook and gets nothing. Okay?
Was she consenting, or was she?
Yeah, even if she's consenting. Even if she has a chet mavis, she's still exempt. Okay? Halachi base. Hamesis zeh. A mesis is a commoner who tries to persuade another person to worship Avodah Zarah. Not a novi sheker, not a false prophet. It's a commoner. Vamesis esed, and also it's somebody. When it talks about mesis umediach in Torah, a mesis is somebody who tries to seduce a commoner, a solitary individual, supposed to the community to go worship Avodah Zarah. What does he do? Omar, he says, "Yesh shiur complaining." Should know that there's a certain deity in a certain place. Kach oicheles, that deity eats. Kach shoisa, it drinks. Kach mitiva, it does good. Kach mirat, does bad. That's considered to be a form of missionizing, seducing for Avodah Zarah, which generates the death penalty for the seducer. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, anybody who's a potential candidate for the death penalty in the Torah, ein machminim aleim, we do not hide witnesses to catch them in their sin. In other words, if they incriminate themselves, fine, we don't try and entice them and run a sting operation on them. Chutz mizu, except for this case of a mesis. Amar lishnayim ve'meidav, if the maces try to seduce two people to worship Avodah Zarah, and they can be witnesses against him, we bring him to court, and we stone him. Amar le'echad, if he only says to one guy, so there aren't two witnesses, what he does is, the one guy who was missionized, he says back to the missionary, I have friends who want to hear what you have to say as well. And he brings the friends, and the friends have this guy try to persuade them, and then they come and they testify in court that he should be put to death for being a missionary. Okay? If however he was a treacherous fellow, this missionary, doesn't speak in front of other people, you hide it to witnesses behind the fence. And the guy says to the missionary, he says quite innocently, tell me again special over what you said to me before. Okay? Speaking to this mic. He's speaking to this little flower here on my lapel. Yeah. So. Okay.
You're watching too many movies.
V'alo and the guy, the plant, whatever, the informer, he says, how can we relinquish our Father, our God in heaven, and go and serve sticks and stones? Im chazerbo, if the missionary reneges, mutav, fine, we let him off the hook. Imam said, Kachi chovoseinu. Said, no, this is what we're required to do, because Avodah Zarah is the way to go. The Kachi yafel lanu, and this is good for us. Omdim ma'achorei gadol ravina, so basically those who are standing behind the fence, bring it to court, besokin or so, and they stone him. Remember, somebody says, vote. Somebody says, I want to go worship Avodah Zarah. Elech, but I'm going to go worship Avodah Zarah. Nelech v'navo, let's go worship Avodah Zarah. Ezba, I'm going to go sacrifice. Elech is, I'm going to go and sacrifice. Nelech is, but we will go and we will sacrifice. Akater, Akater, going to go sacrifice actually means to slaughter. Akater means to put the carbon on top of an altar. El Kater, I'm going to go and put it atop the altar. Nel Kater, let's go and let's put it atop the altar. Anasech, I'm going to libate. El Anasech, I'm going to go and I'm going to libate. Nel Anasech, let's go and let's libate. Eshtachave, I'm going to bow down. El Vishtachave, I'm going to go and I'm going to bow down. Nel Nishtachave, we'll go, we'll bow down. Hamedia, all those are forms of maces, of seducing Avodah Zarah. Hamediach, what is a mediach? A mediach, zesh ha'omer nelech. He says, let's go and worship Avodah Zarah. Now, what basically that's kind of tells us that a mediach is somebody who tries to seduce the masses. A masis is an individual. He's a missionary to an individual. A mediach is somebody who tries to seduce the masses. And that's why it's language, ir ha-nidachas. They're approached by Medichim. In fact, it's brought down in the Bavli that in order to be chayiv as a Mediach, there has to be two of you. And some of the Achronim say the reason for that is because Mistam, a whole city is not going to listen to one person. But if two people come, so they might listen. So if they listen to one person, it's an aberration. Listen to two people, it's not an aberration. Okay? So it would be only chayiv become Mediach if there were two people in cahoots doing it. Okay? Says more further. It says you have to be maces a hedios. What happens if you're maces a chacham, a wise man, or if a chacham is a missionary? It says more mekemchu maces a chacham. If somebody is a maces, that means they can't be called a chacham because smart people don't missionize. Mekemchu nises, and if he's a person who is seduced to worship Avodah Zarah, ain't the chacham is also not too bright. Anybody involved in Avodah Zarah, it's oxymoronic to call him a chacham. What do you do in order to catch him, to sting him? You hide two witnesses in the inner house. So you put him in the outer house. If you light a candle over him, you light a candle over him to see his face. And they hear his voice. They learn that they should be able to testify basin. And kachasul ben sutata belud. That's what they did to ben sutata in lud. And they put the two witnesses in hiding, and then they brought the basin and they stole them. Now it says and you're saying this. Now the issue is not, the Gemara doesn't reveal. The issue is kind of hidden here, but the issue is like this in Yevamis. It says that if you hear somebody saying, "Write a get to my wife," so you write it even though you didn't see him. You hear, what does it say they have to do? They have to actually light a candle in order to see his face. You know, he has to sit just right in the room too, so he gets captured by the eyesight of the agent, right? So how come? They should hear his voice, and hearing his voice should suffice. Right? Yeah, we had to give him a guy in a pit. So it's actually, the Bavli would hold that we rely on the voice in a case where it's a shas of chak. In other words, it's a difficult time. We need to get a secure get. So we're up the creek a little bit, so therefore we bend the rules. But here, in order to give somebody a death penalty, even in maces, we need positive identification. And that's why you need to have a candle, not just to hear a voice. That's what the Pnei Moshe wants to say, essentially. But the Sheilas David, Rav David Karliner, says a more interesting pshat. He says that the pshat is that in the case of, well, let me read the Gemara's answer inside and how he explains it. It says, Marshani hito amarani. Yivamas is different because he said it's me. Now, the way the Sheilas David explains it means that in case of a get, the guy wants to identify himself, and you link a name to the face, right, or a voice to the name. So then that much easier to remember than just seeing somebody and not knowing his name and having to come to testify that he's him. It's hard to ID a person if you don't know his name, if you're not familiar with him. Right? Makes sense, right? So since that's the case, over here by the Maces, we don't know him. And he's not revealing his name, necessarily, right? So therefore we have to light a candle to see his face, otherwise we're not sufficiently, haven't sufficiently clarified that it's him. But in the case of Yavamas, where he says, I'm Yaakov ben Shmerel, and I want you to write a get from my wife, then they already know who it is. It's much easier to make the positive identification. You don't need the same type of edus. Okay? Okay? So it says, Shani Damrani, V'omar of Hacha Ani. Now, here too, we'll only give the death penalty if the Maces identifies himself verbally. He says, I, Ruven ben Shimon, says, Amara Shelo Yarim. We don't want him to be treacherous, meaning that he's not going to say his real name, right? So it says Rabbi Yarim. What do we care? Let him get out. We're not always thrilled with the idea of putting evildoers to death. So why don't we just let him off the hook? So it says Mora. No, we don't let him Maces off the hook. Shelo yelech v'yosis atzmo. We don't want him to seduce himself. And seduce others as well. So this guy we nip off the butt. In other words, we dafka try to trip him up in order to get him off the streets and dead.
And we don't have to give him hasra.
What?
Any of these cases was...
Hasra is not mentioned, but probably the guy who's the plant, the informer, says to him something which passes for us, right? This skila aver and all that. He makes a reveal to him. Okay? Says more further... Maces Oimer. Now here the Shari Yisrael and the Sheilas David turn around every single girsa from here to the end of the Gemara, and the way they read it is like this, and they're probably correct. Maces Oimer Beloshon Hedyot. A Maces says in common language. V'amediach Oimer Beloshon Namuch. The Mediach, the person who is what? Yeah. The person who is doing the masses, he says it in Lashon Gavah in loud language. But the Maces, the Chumash itself says it's B'Seiser, it's in secret. So it's in a soft voice. And Mediach, so it's like the Meraglim, right? They're trying to rile up the congregation, the community, so then you have to have masses of people like that. Okay?
Screaming headlines.
Right. Maces Shamar B'Lashon Gavoa. If a Maces spoke out loud, not the Mediach, it becomes a Mediach. Mediach Shamar B'Lashon Namuch. If a Mediach says it in a soft voice, not the Maces, it becomes a Maces. Maces, a person is a Maces Omer B'Lashon HaKodesh. Then he says it in Lashon HaKodesh. Now, so guys, skip? Yeah, I didn't skip, but it's wrong. The Shaitai switches the gear stuff. Maces says B'Lashon Hadidah. Maces says it in common language. A Mediach says it B'Lashon HaKodesh. Now, question, it struck me odd. Stop have to seduce people to Avodah Zarah in Hebrew. English seems to be a very effective language. Why can't you seduce people to Avodah Zarah in English? So the Sheilas David says a good shot. He says B'Lashon HaKodesh means Ruach HaKodesh. And the guy, an individual, being made an individual, is a case where one commoner comes to the other commoner and says, Yankel, let's go serve Avodah Zarah. But a Mediach is somebody who comes and says, the word of God came to me to worship Avodah Zarah. Now, in the Bavli, Medichim are only if you have two witnesses, not on one Navi Beruach HaKodesh. Yerushalmi argues. Yerushalmi says, one guy comes and says, I'm a Navi, and I say Beruach HaKodesh, worship Avodah Zarah, then he gets he gets two punishments. Can't get stoned twice. Right? because there's a Navi Sheker. Well, actually, I don't know if it's true. That's what I'm saying. There is an issue of a Navi Sheker. I guess it's true. Navi Sheker, but I think that's Chenek, it's not Skila. Whatever it is, he's liable for being a Navi Sheker, and he's also liable for Mediach. Okay? So, in any event, so
Nowadays, the Jews for J, don't they have so-called davening in Hebrew?
Yeah, but I don't know if they claims prophecy. So they would be just Mesisim, not Medichim. I don't think that
they try to couch their so-called...
Well, you can kill him, but that's not the issue. Yeah, okay. So, is there, by the way...
They try to legitimize their so-called dominating their prayers by doing it in Hebrew.
It's a smokescreen, right? But here, again, according to Meshes, here Lashon HaKodesh doesn't mean Hebrew. Here Lashon HaKodesh means a guy purports to have Ruach HaKodesh. But is there some big ceremony missing tonight?
B'nai Akiva.
B'nai Akiva, a big ceremony? Okay. Better to be here. Okay, says some more further. Mesis, again, Mesis Aimer B'Lashon Hedyot, Mediach Lashon Hekdesh. Mesis Shamar B'Lashon HaKodesh. A Mesis who says in Lashon HaKodesh, as if he's a Navi, and Nasa Mediach, he becomes a Mediach. Mediach Shamar B'Lashon Hedyot, Nasa Mesis, he becomes a Mesis, and the parameters, as we said, are different, whether it's two, whether it's a Navi Sheker, the Navi Sheker is involved. There are all sorts of complications which the Yerushalmi itself doesn't get into. The Shelos David does say there's a big machlokas Bavli Yerushalmi, the Rambam Paskin is like the Bavli, but we're not going to get into it. Okay, a mechashev is a meiser. A mechashev is somebody who does a deed, a witch or a sorcerer. V'lo and I'm not somebody who creates an optical illusion. Two people are gathering squashes. One of them is gathering and is exempt. The other guy is gathering and is liable to death. How so? Always said, if somebody does a deed, he's liable. If somebody just creates an optical illusion, Potter is exempt. It says witches do not leave alive, but it says it in feminine. Why does it say in masculine? So it says, it means both men and women. The Torah teaches you the way of the world. Here, derech eretz doesn't mean politeness. It means the way of the world. Most women are witches.
Maybe it means most witches are women.
Then it should say, Rov kashpanios nashim. Okay. Most women are witches. Okay. Now, even Lamaisa, the Gemara above Psachim says that they should never walk. I think it's fine. Never walk between two women, because they might be doing kishuf with each other. Okay. So, it says more. Amar Rabbi Elazar says mechashay b'skila. You get stoned. My time, Rabbi Elazar, what's supposed to teach you does this? So Nemar Kama Chashivol it says, do not leave any which is alive. For Nemar La'alon it says later on in Bei Moim Yishlo Yechiyah. If they're an animal or a person who goes up in Har Sinai, when Hashem is there, they're not going to survive, and it says they're stoned over there. Milo Yechesh Nemar La'alon, just like over there, it's everybody and it's Beskila. Afghan, so to it's everybody and it's Beskila. My time at the Rabbanon. What's the logic of Rabbanon who hold that Mechashefah only gets chenek? Only gets suffocated, strangulated, strangled, whatever. Because Nemar kam Mechashefah, and Nemar lo chayeh, it says do not leave alive, and Nemar la'alon says later on lo chayeh kol neshama. I said chenek, but it's cherev, I'm sorry, my mistake. Not the strangulation, but by sword. And it says by the conquest of Eretz Yisrael, lo chayeh kol neshama. Do not leave any of them alive. So that's the case. Just like Los Chayah by the nations which came to the land of Canaan means kill them via the sword, right? Misa b'cherev, Los Chayah Shnei Markan, so here Misa b'cherev we kill by the sword. I am going to make a reckoning based on the following principle. Utav shelamed los chayeh kol los chayeh mi los chayeh. Learn out the Yerushalmi los chayeh. Write those two because they're the exact same word. Vayochiach lo yichya. Don't use lo yichya, which is not written with the top, but rather written with the yud. So there we come to the conclusion that it's actually cheret. Cheret, because those are both places where it says it with a tov here. Okay? Says Gemara, Baita Rav Yehuda. What's the logic of Rav Yehuda? Now, we actually didn't have Rav Yehuda until now. Rav Yehuda says, but Rav Yehuda says a different version of the reason why stam death is stoning. No. Matama. No, sorry. But he's actually going to Rabbanan here. Not Rabbanan. Who's the first to be? Rabbi Lezer. Because Matama here, Nemar Kam Chashifo, it says, don't leave the witches alive. Nemar, it says, they're on Kol Shechem Be'emah, in juxtaposition. Kol Shechem Be'emah, Mos Yumos. Anybody who lies with an animal gets put to death. Misas habehem abiskila, just like there you put the animal to death by stoning. Afkam biskila, so too it's by stoning as well. Says more. Now the rest of the parak is actually stories. Okay, Dilma. Remember that word, Dilma? Sure. I don't think we've had it in a long time. It means they're about to have stories. But remember it right in the early parts of Shas, right? So Dilma, and I think we had the story once before. Can you remember somewhere? Dilma. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Kiva, Ali in the Mitzrei Be'adin Dimusa Tveria. They went to swim in a certain bathhouse in Tveria. Chamsu Chaminoitz, one of the witches saw them. Omar Madamar, it seems like it was a warlock. I know the difference between a witch and a warlock and sorcerer. I know witch is female, the other two, I don't know actually what a male witch is. Maybe it is a warlock. What?
Male witch is a warlock.
Yeah. What did I say this other thing?
Sorcerer.
Yeah, sorcerer. It's also male, right? So what's the difference between a sorcerer? So it's just synonyms. Okay. So it was one of them, and there in the bathhouse. So we Chamsu Chaminoi, a certain min, who was also a magician, found them. Omar Madamar, he said whatever they said, Stun Kippur, and they got stuck in the dome. I don't know exactly how that worked, but they got stuck in the dome of the bathhouse. They couldn't go home. Next time you go in the Beis Medrash, look up at the dome, look for the stuck rabbis. Okay, so we used to not in the Beis Medrash. No. Beis Medrash is ugly. We used to say that the dome contains all the neshamos of all the rabbis who took mixed pulpits after they left the yeshiva. They need a lot of space for them to float. What?
It's overcrowded.
Yeah. Up there it's overcrowded. Okay. So Rabbi Lezer said to Rabbi Yeshua, see what you can do to get us out of this mess. When this min was leaving the bathhouse, Rabbi Yeshua said incantation, which of course was a white magic incantation, right, legitimate. The min was grabbed by the gates. Came to bath. Everybody came into the bathhouse. Would slap him in the face. Anybody left the bathhouse, would give him a kick in the rear. So therefore, this min was getting upset. Amar alone, so he said to the rabbi, "Sure, let me go. Sure, undo what you did." Amar they said, "Nothing doing, kiddo. Sure, you undo what you did. Sharon and we'll be and then we'll be matter afterwards." So Sharon and Elam Bilam, they let each other go. My napkins is they're going out. Rabbi Shua Rabbi Shua said to that min. What else do you know how to do? What other tricks do you got? So it says the Amar, so it says Nechos liyama. Let's go down to the sea and I'll show you. Mean the Natzin Nachtin liyama. Once they were by the sea. Amar uminaya madamri. So whatever he said. These bazayama and the sea split. Amar alone. And then he said to Rabbi Yeshua was with him, didn't Moshe your Rabbeinu, your Rebbe, do this in the sea? But look, I could do it too. So Rabbi Yeshua retorted, and I guess maybe his friends also retorted to him, don't you concede to us, Moshe Rabbeinu went in the parted Red Sea? So he said, in. So they conceded, yeah, of course that was true. So he said, that's the case, you walk through too. So he went inside, you know what's coming. Gozer Rabbi Yeshua al Sora Diyama, Rabbi Yeshua decreed on the master of the sea, Ubala, and the waters covered him over, they swallowed him up. Okay? Dilma, this is another story. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabban Gamliel, Saki Leroimi, they're going to Rome. They went to a certain place where they thought there were no Jews. And they found the children Avdin Gavshutin making clumps of dirt. They're saying like this. They said They said this is what the Jews in Israel do, right? About Trumas Umaisers. They said that since they didn't say, they just said Hayin Truma Vayin Meiser. I don't know what I just said, but scratch it from the record. So they were saying is that when they took the mounds, the sand, they would say this mound is Truma, this mound is Meiser. Okay? That's what I said. Okay, before. I'm sorry, my mind went blank.
What does this have to do with Kisha?
You'll see. It's going to get there. So Armenians, they said, there must be Jews in this neighborhood, right? It was like going to Postville and finding a bunch of Lubavitchers there. So there must be Jews in this neighborhood. So, they went to a certain place, and they received by a certain Jew. When they went, they sat down to eat v'abba called Tafshil, and he did what was brought before them. If the Balabas did not bring it first to a certain small room off the main dining room, it wouldn't bring it to them. They were afraid, maybe he's doing kishuv in the other room. And they're eating literally the karbonos of the dead. They said, they said, what are you doing? The call tavshil, well, that might say kumanin, anything you bring in front of us. In leisa moyalu kitoinla, you don't bring it into that little room. Leisa maisilu, you don't bring it to us. So we want a kumain in front of us, so we want to know what's going on. They said to them, I'll tell you. Obviously, I have an old grandfather there. Okay? The Gazan Hashem decreed on his soul, he's not going to leave that room until he sees the sages of Israel. They said, that's all he needs, no problem. The Gabon, go into him, and say to him, what? That's good? Yeah. Let me go back. Go into the old man. Bremen say to him, come outside to us. To them, because they're here. He came out. Said, what do you do? They said, I'll tell you. Tzlun Shabori. At this day, they said to the old man, when the old man came out. So he said to Maestro, what are you doing? They said, Salun breathe the lomoli. He didn't answer directly. He said, down for my son because he can't have kids. Okay, so he said, reason why I was basically mourning was just because my son can't have kids. So says the Gemara, needless to say, what's the reason why he couldn't have kids? In light of what we said, what's the reason he didn't have kids? He had been bewitched. He was rendered...
That's not the obvious answer.
In this sugya.
I understand it. I would still resort to that.
Okay. Well, that's what you'll see. Okay, maybe it's not an answer. An obvious answer. So, on Rabbi Lezer Yeshua, Rabbi Lezer said to Yeshua, Ma Yeshua Mechanan Chamei. What do you see, Yeshua Mechanan now? Ma'adat Avi, what are you going to do? He said, I tell you, I see Zera de Kitnum, bring me a certain type of seed. I forget what kind of seed it is. Sounds like linnet, but probably not. Whatever it is. So bring me a certain type of seed. I said Zera de Kitnum, they brought the seed. It's Chamele Zera Gabe Tavla. He heated up the seed on top of a tablet. Ischame. Ischame here means he sought. Zar la gari took it. Zar la gaba to tavla. He planted on top of the table. Ischame he saw him a rabbitzley. Ischame the sak the solik. He so started. No, not that he saw it. He said, "You pay attention." That's fair, please.
Yeah.
I think they have coffee. Do you mind? Nobody in coffee. It's in the other. It's right. I need it. It's in the other. It's like for me, it's like Wednesday night or Thursday night already. They brought in a new urn. Yeah, it's, where the old urn used to be, right here. So he said. So Amar Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Shua. I went back a line because Amar Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Shua. My Yeshua ben Chanech. Chamei matav. Go see what you can do. Amar said, "Iceland is the kiton. Bring me this seed." Iceland is the kiton. They brought him. Ischamilei. He saw it. Zore gabe tavla. He planted on the tabletop. Ischami rabbit, so they saw him watering it. Ischami the solik. They saw him. They saw it grew. Ischami lish, but they saw him start plucking leaves. At the asi chada isa, until finally he produced a woman from inside the plant, and he was grabbing on the kliyasa desara to the braid of her hair. Now this was well before Star Trek, right? But she materialized here. She was beamed into this plant, and he pulled her out of the plant. See, it's much neater than pulling out of a hat, right? So he pulled the woman out of a plant, okay? So he pulled her out by her braids, okay? Armala! And he said to her, she was a real witch, a real bona fide one. Shore ma'ata varatun. You bewitched this guy that he's impotent. Undermine that, okay? So it says the Gemara, Amar Lena Shar. She said I can't. Amar La. He said you better, because the locator, if not, Anar Faisal can go to publicize that you're a witch. Amar Le. So she said to him, Lena Yochla, I can't do it. Dinu Misaki Biyama. My tools of the trade fell into the sea. Because Rabbi Yeshua, sorry, Diyama, you fell Paltunun. So Rabbi Yeshua Hanani decreed that the whatever the mouth in charge of sea should regurgitate them. V'tzona love, and they daven for this guy once the witchcraft went away. And Zachal Mikra Yehuda Ben he's the one who is the father or an ancestor of Yehuda Ben Beseira.
But they needed the help of the witch getting her tools there.
Right, because the witch had to take off the spell, right? The witch has to. I'm not sure if that's true in Harry Potter, but in old days they had to take off their own spells. Okay? So it says more, you haven't read any of the Harry Potter books, right? Haven't read any of the Harry Potter books. Okay? It says more, the kids are looking forward a lot to the trip, some of them, because I rented the Harry Potter books on tape for them to listen to. Okay, even though they've read all the books 4 or 5 times already. Say more further. They said, the only reason we came here to Rome was to produce a tzaddik dayenu, that would be sufficient. Said he's the one who did all this kosher witchcraft. He was obviously a practical Kabbalist. It's like Baba Sali. He says, I can take gourds and squashes. Vavilon island tabin, I can make them rams and goats, or rams and deer. And those rams and deers will make other rams and deers. Which I can make them full animals to the extent that those animals will procreate. Okay?
It's cloning.
Yeah, it's cloning. It really is cloning. Yeah. So, I'm Rabbi Yana. Rabbi Yana says, I was walking down the road in Tzipori. The Chazis Chat Minen saw a certain one of these Bikorasim, one of these witches. Nasiv Tzur, he would take a stone, Zark the room, or a clump of dirt, Zark the room, and throw it up to the skies. Find Nugs, it would come down beside and become a calf on its way down. Very strange magic. Take some dirt, throw up the sky, becomes a calf. But that's what it says here. Says more, I understand. How could they possibly do it? No coffee?
Just hot water.
Does that work? I'm sorry for upsetting you for nothing. So it says tomorrow, V'lokein Amar Rabbi Elazar Shem Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra didn't Rabbi Elazar the name Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra in Miskatze and Kol Ba'Elam. If all the people will get together, Ein Echad Livros Yatush Echa B'Lizor B'Neshama. It's interesting. He denies cloning. He says in the first of the wide lines here, it says a human being can make all sorts of forms, but they can't put in a soul. Even the soul of a gnat, right? An animal soul they can't put in. So as Amara, it should be not Neymar lo, but lo Neymar. No, you're right. That's not what happened. Rather, Neymar, let's say, Nas Minaya Chatzror, there was actually sleight of hand. The man took a tzror, V'zark l'rum, and threw it up. V'nachas v'zi, lo Neymar, it's all one line, it's not one line. Lo Neymar, don't say Nas Minaya Chatzror, it took a certain stone. V'zark, we will toss it up, and he came down beside Chadegam, became a calf. Ella, rather, Lusare Kara, he called his assistant, V'konev le'egam min bekurta, who stole him a calf from the herd, v'azo isolated. So it's like a sleight of hand, like sawing a woman in half. He threw up a coin, got everybody's attention, whatever he threw up, and in the meantime he switched the animals down below. Okay? Now, a Maisa, it comes out here that a regular person can't make an neshama, can't make a soul, right? Even all the people together can't make a soul. But I think it's only talking about Goyim, because Jews, you have the whole episode with the Goyim, right? Right, so, and even if the Maral didn't make a Goyim, there were Goyim in Jewish history. So obviously it means, with science, you can't make a new neshama. But with Torah, you can make a new neshama. Okay, with Torah, that would be what the Goyim was. Now, even then, according to the legend, they couldn't give him the power of speech, right?
Right, so the Goyim didn't have a soul, did he? I mean, he was just
like an animal.
a robot.
Like an animal.
Yeah. Does an animal have a soul?
That's what it says here. It has an animal soul. But the scientists can't even do that. That's what it says. Okay? Says more further. I'm Rabbi China bar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina said, "B'tayla v'ina b'yilin gufta ziporin." We are walking the sea banks in Tzipori. The problem is that Tzipori has no sea banks. It's a landlocked town. So it probably should be Tveria or something like that. We saw a min turn to one of these guys, the witches, taking a... what was it? What?
Stone?
Some of it is called, right? The Zarkal Ruma, and he tossed up to the heavens, Vunach, and it came down beside the egg and became a calf here, the below. So I was very impressed by that. Everybody knows a pretty neat witch. So I came and told my father this, who was also Rabbi Chanina. So he says, there was no proof. In Achris Minei Maisu. Yeah, you saw it was an act collusion. You didn't eat from it, did you? So you didn't eat from it, you don't know it's true. If you love, not achizas in aimu, right? Says Marmei Shemachin said Shloshmas Parshas Yorei Leza Darsh of Parshas Machsheva. You would dash 300 psukim about the Parsha of Machsheva. We call Moshe Mati Yoshed from all 300. Only heard two things. Where that Shnaim looking sure Echaloik and Potter, what it said in our Mishnah, if two people gathering squashes or gourds. One is gathering and is chayim, one is gathering because it's put and is potter. Depends on the tent and type of malacha. Okay? What was my place?
Second last line,
Also nice.
Yeah, so this guy, the man, threw up this skull, it came down as a calf. So that's Amar Abbas. I came to my father. Amar le'in achus minei maisu ilo achizas inaim. Not achizas inaim. So I went back. Amar Shulchan Yeshiv Chanina said, Shlosh mios parshas herav lezat derish parshas Machsheva. You darshan 300 things in by Malshefa. Ulikulam l'shmati el shnei dvarim. Only on 2 things altogether in my entire life of those 300. Shtayim are one of them is Shtayim Mokdim Kishuin. 2 people gathering a squash. Echad Leiket Pater, one gathers his Pater Trubus Maisrus. Echad Leiket V'Chayav. The other guy is Chayav in Trubus Maisrus. No. This is in terms of skilo. Sorry. This is really our mission. 2 people gather the squash. It depends how they gather squashes, whether they're Chayav Misa or not. If they do it by Kishuv, so they're Chayav Misa. If they do it just in an optical illusion, they're not Chayav Misa. I know you do an optical illusion to pretend that a whole field has been plucked bare of its contents. But somehow it can be done by optical illusion. Or at least according to this Mishnah. Says the Mara, Isa Maisa, the guy who does the deed is Chayav. Somebody who just causes the hoax to be perpetrated, he is exempt. Amravi Druser Chamios Parshios Hoyu. There are 300 Parshios. Shoshmas Chiv, 300 which were positive, meaning, well, actually here it means negative, that who anybody does is liable to the death penalty, and Shlosh Mios L'Ptur, 300 which left the guy get off the hook, Shlosh Mios L'Chiv Sh'Ptur, and 300 which are also Chatchila, but are okay with the heaven once you did it. Okay?
Interesting, Gemara uses the term 300, which you've always said is
a negative term. Absolutely. Right, that will be sustained here as well. Okay, says the Mishnah further. Ben Sora Moreh. The wayward son. When does he become the wayward son? For the time he has 2 hairs, he become a ben somra. Until his entire lower beard is intact, and he has most of his hair down there, which is sometime later. Okay. We go by the bottom beard, in the pubic area, but not the top beard. The reason why I mentioned it at all is because Chamin would have to, and they mention it in a clean way. Shnamar says, Kela Ish Ben. How we know it's Dafka it's up to a certain age, because it says Ben. Ben Lobas, a son and not a daughter. And Ben Loish, a son and not a person who's already an adult. A katan potter shelo b'al mitzvahs. A katan is exempt from ben samara because he hasn't yet reached the age of mitzvahs. Okay, Rabbi Zira and it's not Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Avo, and Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Shimon Lakish said. It says v'chiyazid ishar elu or go b'arma. If a person plots against his friend to kill him with treachery. But we darshan yazid from lashon yazid adarshim from lashon of lentils of lentil soup, right? How so? Because we read in the Mishnah, Meimasa nasa ish, from when the person become a man, mishi yazid, from when he becomes ripe. Yazid means here ripe. Meimasa who mezid, when it's considered to be ripe. Once his pubic hair expands and he has hair all around his the area over there, and there's certain also physiological change which I don't exactly understand what it means. The thigh expands. Anyway, be that as it may, Lamaisa, the Shayat Yisrael points out that the Yerushalmi holds that. Well, actually, let me read a little bit further. Hey, the Daila. Did I skip? Yeah, sorry. Anazir said, Tara Rabbi Shila Barbina, Kiel Ish. Mushal, an analogy. If the seeds are ripe on the inside, that means that the pot is black on the outside. So that means that the area, the pubic area, has to be fully filled in with black. When does that happen? After age 12 and a half, I think. Is it before after age 13? After 12 and a half. Okay? Now.
It could mean the zera too is maturing. The seeds could be zera.
Yeah, the seeds are maturing, and therefore on the outside it's darker. Okay? Says Umar, Rabbi Zira said, Tana Rabbi Shila Barbina. Kiyeli ish ben. If a person has a son, right, it has to be a ben soror more. V'lo sheyeh ben of. Not that the son should be a father. Now, what does that mean? That means after a certain time, a son can't be a father, a ben soror more anymore. Hey, died law. I'm sorry. Came to of all Ishla Abra. Once he's suitable of having relations with the woman making her pregnant, he can't become a ben soror anymore. A ben soror more anymore. Hey, at that point he's a father of a little Ben, not a son. Ben Torah says Ben soror more, not a father is a soror more. There's a very basic malachos between the Bible and Yerushalmi, which Shai Teritzel points out. The Bible says a ben soror more is only possible for how many months? 3. The Bible says 3. The Yerushalmi says 6. The Bible says 3. Why is that? Because the way the Bible that's supposed to say is Chiyel ish ben soror more. The Bible that says ish ben. In other words, he's got to be a person who has elements of ben and elements of ish. When he has an but not that he's a of, not that he's a father already. So actually, the way the Bible is, he's got to have an element of an ish, meaning that it has to be able to demonstrate that he can impregnate a woman. How do we know? What point do we know that he can impregnate a woman? When the woman's showing. When does the woman show? After 3 months. So the first time he becomes ben soror more is after 3 months. But once he's already could be a father, he can't be a ben soror more anymore. When is he already possible to become a father? The earliest time, after how many months? According to halacha, 6 months. So therefore, when is he an ish ben? Only during those 3 months. But according to Yerushalmi is a moira dikechinish, which is that just like there's kats of bagrus by a girl, that girl's not a boger still she's 12 and a half, so too by a boy there's a constant bagrus, which is when he's 13 and a half. And until then, he can't impregnate a woman, according to the Yerushalmi. So when does he begin to become a ben soror more? No. 13 and a half, it's over, because then he can be a father already.
No, when he's 13.
Oh, he begins. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up between a girl and a boy. 13 because you're right. 13 because ben soror more. 13 and a half he becomes oy soror more. Was ben soror more. Because Yerushalmi doesn't dash and he's in each ben. He's got to be a complete ben. He has to be a baroncha. So it starts at 13. It goes to 13 and a half. Okay.
But is the Bali going at 12.9 or 13?
Bali's went for 13 and a quarter to 13 and a half.
13 and a quarter to 13 and a half?
Yes. From the time that you could tell he can impregnate until the time she would give birth. So window of opportunity of 3 months. Okay? So, that's what it says. V'asi kadamar b'yas b'shem. Rabbi Shabtai kol Moshe ben Sormar ein el shish chodashim v'arts only 6 months. Then again, the Bible says 3 months. Rabbi Yasser said kol leim milay lo mistabrin do elo chilufin. Everything the Torah says ben Sormar makes no sense. It should be the exact opposite. Tani, we learned the Bryce at Taylor Chashukesh. Is this true? Ki mi bedin she'achayev. Who should be liable for stealing and guzzling? Haben or Abbas? A son or a daughter? Haben or Abbas is much more degrading for a daughter to do it, so Ben Sormar should apply to girls, right? Upot l'teres Abbas, v'chivas ben, and the Torah lets those girls off the hook. Furthermore, mi bedin she'achayev. Who should be liable? Katan or gadol? A child or an adult? Haben or gadol? Right? The gadol should be more chayev, right? Pater teres a gadol v'chivas a katan. What?
Have Omer gadol patras a Torah gadol.
How do I read it?
That's it. What I'm saying is that the gadol would be the one who's patras.
No, gadol should be more chayev. A gadol is more evil. A katan who does something is a minor. He shouldn't be sentenced to such severe penalty. Now, Lamaisa, this kid is not a katan, by the way. He's just very young. That's what it means. But he's under 13 and a half, right? So he's an adult because he has 2 hairs, but he's not yet a father. So the Gemara is saying, who's logical to make chayav a korban? A child who doesn't yet have full das to be a chayte, or an adult whose the chayt is done with full knowledge and forethought, right? So it's much more liable to be mechayev a gadol. Yet in fact, who are Mechayev Ben Tzor only specifically, not a true cotton, but a very young man, right?
Yeah, but he's a bardas at 13.
Right, but you figure a person gets more bardas as he grows up. But nevertheless, there's because of Dafka cotton, right? Pasha Teres Agol V'chivas cotton. Miyo B'din Shechayev, who should be liable? Agoyim Shalchem, Agoyim Shalav, if somebody steals from somebody else, somebody steals from his father. It's more likely a person is more corrupt if he steals from somebody else. Yet the Torah says you're only chayiv if you steal from your father. Okay? So it's counterintuitive. And furthermore, v'chiva Torah, pacha Torah goyim sha'acherim, Torah exempts somebody who steals somebody else, chiva goyim sha'alav yivimo, and makes you liable to steal from your father and mother. What?
It flew in between my glasses and my eye.
Really?
Yeah, that's so weird.
Okay. Lamedcha, you obviously look like a piece of wool. Lamedcha shekulan eina, Lamedcha shekulan eina elixir skam melech. It teaches us that all the halachos of Ben Tzor, since they are counterintuitive, are gzeres hakosov. Okay? Alright, everybody, so we have to stop here for this evening. You know, I was thinking maybe on Monday, depending on where we stop on the way back, I might want to do a telephone shiur. So I will call you earlier in the day, and I'll let you know, and you let the assembled most of the time.